This is my 58th video on my work with OO gauge. See part 1 of this series for my reasons for getting into OO gauge when I already had a lot invested in working in N gauge and I didn't really have space available for a large, fully operational OO gauge layout. Also see my lengthy series on my N gauge railway modelling for smaller and more complex scenery and smaller scale trains running. This part is the 32nd, dealing with my third layout made using mainly Hornby EZ Track. See the prior video, part 27, for my reasons for wanting to try a Hornby EZ Track layout when I already had an OO gauge layout using Bachmann EZ Track. This part is going to be a little Traincam tour of the Hornby layout. That is a trip round the lines of the layout from the point of view of a camera mounted on a train. I've done this several times with my N gauge layout. Of course, there's rather more line to tour there because a lot more fits on a table-sized board in the smaller scale. On the other hand, the technical challenges were greater in N gauge. Getting a camera round, past signals and platforms, under and over bridges, through tunnels, etc. was quite challenging in that small scale. It's rather easier in OO gauge where there's altogether more clearance. I needed something to mount my camera on. I picked up a bunch of these box fans on eBay UK, 7 of them I think, and I've been progressively repainting them and decalling them to make them into LMS stock, but I still had a couple that I hadn't worked on, and I was familiar with taking them apart from my refinishing work, so I took this one off its chassis so that I could use that chassis to carry the camera. These wagons have good chassis with smooth metal wheels that roll very well. I used my cheap little SQ11 action cam. I just taped it to the chassis with some Tamiya modelling masking tape. I used the Lima diesel shunter for an engine as it runs quite smoothly and doesn't generally have any problems with derailing or hesitating over the points, etc. So, let's go ahead with the tour. Okay, well let's see if we can get some Traincam footage of this Hornby layout. I'm not sure whether I've got everything working right now, but we'll try. We're moving. I did try and do a bit of track cleaning. Unfortunately, even then, things are still a little bit jerky. Let's see if we can stop in the station. No idea what the camera's really seeing. We're getting moving again at least. Go around once more and then we'll try and see if we can move on to the other line. Perhaps. Whoops. We nearly knocked the signal over there. Unfortunately, these signals are not very stable. Okay, well let's see if we can have a little adventure here. Can we get onto the turntable? Will it work? Who knows? No, apparently not, for whatever reason. Ooh. Okay, so you're on the turntable. Noisy, blithering thing. Very noisy. Always has been very noisy, this turntable. With the Hornby electrically operated turntable. Can I bring you off the turntable? In the reverse direction, yes we can. So let's go round through the station in the reverse direction. And I'll change the point there so you don't hit it. So there you're coming into the station the other way. Famous last words. Okay. I don't know quite what the best thing to do is. Maybe I'm going to take you to the stage through the turntable again. Might be asking a bit much, but whoops. see if we can run you onto the other line. None of these. I don't know whether this is going to work, but it sort of did work, amazingly enough. Just stop you in the station there while I reset points here. None of these points is automatic, so I have to reach over to them all the time to reset them. Over the level crossings, through those points, which I reset. I must apologise, I'm not setting the signals correctly for what you're doing, really. I really should have, but it gets a bit too complicated. And I have to admit, really planned in advance what I wanted to do. Let's take you up here. Let's try and take you. I'm going to try and take you onto the outer sidings now. There you go. See, now you're on the outer sidings. Although it might have been better if you were facing the other way. Help over the point there. And you're going back into the engine shed. Ooh, you're in the engine shed. Now let's try and bring it out of the engine shed. Whoopee! Yes. Get stuck on that point every time. It's not a very long train. Let's go back onto the main line then if we can. There we go. Let me see if I can bring you back onto the inside line. Well, my line crossing there is going better than I expected it to be quite honest. Let's just take you one more time. Whoops, I have to change the point to do so. Onto the turntable. Sorry about the noise. To do this is because I wanted to just take you, famous last words, I stopped you on the point there and you're not moving. Ooh. Can't get you moving, I don't know what's happened. What the heck has happened? I don't know. Everything was working quite well, and now I suddenly can't seem to get you to do anything. Oh, well, that's weird. Maybe it's not weird, I don't know. I would have thought it was weird. Why should setting that point stop you moving? So if I set this point, well, it stops. Well, that, whoops. This point is, for goodness sake. Got to do something about these darn signals. For goodness sake. I can't get at the point setting without knocking over the darn signal. Woo! Now, I wanted to try and take you into this siding. Well, I have to say I don't even understand why that didn't work. I'd have to think about the wiring of that. Somehow or other, there's some carriages there, and there's some wagons, but I don't know why it seemed to be necessary to have that point set to get the power there. Okay, well, let's just try and take you around one more time then, and then I think you've seen pretty much all there is to see on this layout. It's not a very large and complicated layout. Okay, let's just resolve my confusion about the power situation. Why wouldn't the engine with the camera move after I brought it down from the turntable the last time? Well, here's a picture of the engine in that location. It's on the inner loop, so if it were going to get power, that power would come from the inner loop throttle feeding into the track at the point shown at bottom left. But I had the point going to the turntable set to turn as the engine had just come off the turntable. So that would stop power feeding around the loop clockwise to where the engine was. And I'd turned the point leading to the inner sidings and the goods shed to turn as I wanted to take the camera up there. But that then stopped power feeding around the loop anti-clockwise to where the engine was. So, no power for the engine. Of course, what I should have done was to reset the point to the turntable before I set the point for the siding. Then the engine would have proceeded okay. DC operations can be a bit tricky at times. Maybe I'll do a video just on the power and control of this really quite simple little layout, although that might be rather boring to a lot of folks. Still, it'll help me get things straight in my head, and some might find it interesting.